What does it take to actually sound American, to acquire an American English accent, regardless of the country you may come from? Well, today we're going to be taking a look at two pronunciation files that you sent to try to give some suggestions on what are some of the differences between our speech and what we can typically expect in American English. Good morning, guys. Good evening. Good afternoon. Welcome to your daily American English pronunciation review show, which is the Schwa Mill. We are here, not actually daily, excuse me, I'm still used to our previous show. We are here Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays, right around 7:30 in the morning, New York time, to look at pronunciation files that you send us, to give you the feedback, and to guide you in this process. There's me. Hello, my name is Geoff. It rhymes with breath. That's one of the four keys to an accent in American English, including placement, pitch, breath. Trying to weaken your consonant sounds in order to strengthen your vowel sounds. We're also joined this morning by David. Hello, sir. I got two more files for you to be looking at. Thanks to everyone who's been sending the files. In case you don't know, if you go to the link in the video description, that first link is to a free Telegram group where people can send files. I select two of them for review. So thanks to everyone who continues to send us files there. Greatly appreciated. Let's take a listen to our first file and see what sort of feedback we can give. Here's our first one.
I used to talk with my family member in the US. He immigrated when Bill Clinton was president.
Okay, I'm going to play it out one more time.
I used to talk with my family member in the US. He immigrated when Bill Clinton was president.
Okay, so some quick things here. I'll be honest, these first three words I'm having a hard time understanding. I think it's like I'll start with,
I used to talk with my family.
but I'm not convinced that that's actually what's being said here. Maybe some other like I can start with or something like that. I'm trying to understand why am I having some hard time or some difficulty getting this.
I used to talk with my family member.
So whatever your actual phrase is here, if what I would really suggest is starting off with just kind of the key vowel sounds. Okay.
I used to talk with my family.
So, because that first vowel sounds like and that can be like I can, but maybe if we gave a little bit more space to those vowels, it would be a little bit easier to create the context. What I like about it, though I'm having some hard time, like some difficulty understanding it, what I like about it is it's very fluid. There's a lot of breath moving through. I just think if we give a little bit more space to the vowels, that's going to help a lot with making it a little bit more comprehensible.
I used to talk with my family.
Also, that second part of it, like that with like if it is an R sound, remember in American English when you have firmer ers, like you can't just if it's more R I. That's the closest vowel I'm hearing. So if that's not actually the vowel, whatever vowel that is needs to be a little bit sharper. Okay, so that's my big suggestion just for that opening. I don't think we're giving enough space to the central vowel, and we need to make sure that we're pronouncing those vowels clearly. Remember, American English is so focused on vowel sounds over consonant sounds, so if the vowel sounds aren't really clear, it's going to be hard for people to understand. You can get away with some wrong consonant sounds, but if your vowel's off, people are going to have a hard time understanding.
I used to talk with my family member in the US. He immigrated when Bill Clinton was president.
So one of the things we're hearing here for the rest of the file is we're hearing a lot of relatively short thought groups. Each of our thought groups are basically like 2 to 3 words for the most part.
I used to talk with my family member in the US. He immigrated when Bill Clinton was president.
So it's basically my family member was in the US. He immigrated when Bill Clinton was president. That's basically your thought groups here. So right, every thought group is more or less 2 to 3 words, which is fine. That's not necessarily a problem, though it's something that can be an element of contrast. We talk about on the channel a lot about how your elements of contrast are key for getting that natural sound. We have to mix up the amount of pitches we're using. We have to change our speed. We have to go firm and then go soft. Like all these sorts of elements. And when we repeat the same sort of pattern a little bit too frequently, it can cause us to become a little bit more difficult to understand. So something to kind of experiment with here is to lengthen the thought groups a bit. What's up to Tom hanging out with us? Thanks for being here. Play again.
I used to talk with my family member in the US. He immigrated when Bill Clinton was president.
Yeah. As we have these short thought groups too, so we have these. I can hear in general the thought groups are progressing down, but there is one thought group that kind of jumps up and it disjoints the rhythm a bit.
I used to talk with my family member in the US. He
That my family member, and then that next thought group goes high again on is. Like my family member is in the versus like my family member is in the. Do you hear a difference between my family member is in the and my family member is in the. So what happened is we transitioned to a new thought group, but we started that next thought group also high. It was almost at the same pitch as family, and that sort of rhythm can catch your listener a little bit off guard. It creates a sentence that doesn't sound as natural. It kind of breaks from the music of what we expect in English.
I used to talk with my family member in the US. He immigrated when Bill Clinton was president.
It also sounds like we may have like swallowed a word. It's like it almost sounds like is the U.S. versus is in the. So it sounds like we kind of lost that in a little bit. Let's take a look at the end of the file.
I used to talk with my family member in the US. He immigrated when Bill Clinton was president.
I like your held T sound on Clinton. Clinton's not the easiest word to say because it has that held T. Like it's not Clinton, it's Clinton. Clinton. In general, I like what you're doing there. Lots of breath coming through. I wanted to highlight that. Um, that pattern that you're using for that final sequence.
I used to talk with my family member in the US. He immigrated when Bill Clinton was president.
He immigrated when Bill Clinton was president. That sort of rhythm, you're not going to, it's not a very conversational rhythm. Okay, like it's clear, it's understandable, but that like he immigrated when Bill Clinton was president. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. Um, honestly, that's just not. If you're having an actual conversation, I wouldn't expect to hear that sort of music. A more common pattern might be doing like high, mid, low, or like down, down, down. Like he immigrated when Bill Clinton was president. Like, or he immigrated when Bill Clinton was president. I think that would actually be he immigrated when Bill Clinton was president. I think a pattern like that would be pretty common. It all depends on context. What are you really trying to express here? Why are you saying this phrase? Like, because in my mind here, the important thing isn't necessarily the president, but it's like who was the president when they came. Because you're trying to indicate the time, right? So to me, the information that does that the most isn't saying the president, but saying Bill Clinton, because that gives you the time reference. So I might, instead of going down on that part, I might actually have that as the highest point. Like he immigrated when Bill Clinton was president. He immigrated when Bill Clinton was president. Da 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 da.
I used to talk with my family member in the US. He immigrated when Bill Clinton was president.
Yeah, so instead of putting emphasis on the president part, I would probably put it on Bill Clinton because that's the greater reference. That's going to be the more important information. One of the things we see a lot in English is the things that are, or the concepts that are more important often get higher pitches, and the things that are kind of old information or assumed kind of get lower pitches. Lower pitches are a way of kind of getting things out of the way. Higher pitches can be a way of things to highlight something in a thought group. Okay. So there's just some quick notes to make there. Thank you again for sending that audio file. Greatly appreciate it. Hope to see you more around the channel. Before we take a look at our next audio file, I do want to just give a quick shout out to our sponsor. Who is our sponsor for today? Oh, it's us. It's our channel memberships. So in case you don't know, we offer channel memberships here on the YouTube channel. And you may be like, well, what's the point of a channel membership? People who are channel members basically get access to viewing and watching on the replay all of our group coaching sessions. In addition to some video courses we have video courses dedicated entirely to pitch. We have video courses dedicated to vowel sounds. We have video courses dedicated to how to take a text. Maybe you have to give reports. Maybe you have to prepare a speech. Maybe you have to prepare some sort of talk. And you're like, how do I make this sound natural? Well, we have workshops available for that too. But probably the biggest value is just the fact that you can see all of our daily group coaching sessions. We have group coaching sessions Monday through Friday, multiple times a day. And so if you're a channel member, you get to actually watch those live. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, your goal is to achieve a much more natural sound in English, and you like the sort of feedback that I give, then you may enjoy being a channel member. You can find more information about that below if you see that little join button, or you can find that on the homepage at youtube.com/fluentamerican. And of course, thank you to people who are already channel members. Some people actually are here already are channel members, like Got You. Hello to Got You. Okay. Let's take a look at our second file.
So, according to Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis, we only acquire language when we understand something that we used to not understand.
Okay, I mentioned some Krashen talking about that input hypothesis, I+1. Good stuff. Let's play this again, talk about pronunciation.
So, according to Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis, we only acquire language when we understand something that we used to not understand.
Okay. So one thing I will say here is that we're using a low voice. So I think we're using a relatively low placement, although we're a little bit tight. I don't hear a lot of breath necessarily. So if I could give my first recommendation here, would be, hey, how can we engage our diaphragm a little bit more? So just add a little bit more resonance.
So according to Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis, we only acquire language when we understand something that we used to not understand.
It's almost like I like talking like this versus if I talk like this. So I think in the past, you look at some of our previous videos, we do lots of exercises on breath. One exercise that you might like exploring is one just kind of just breathing. So just and then vocalizing it. You can pick a vowel sound. So for instance, like an ah sound, so like ah. Notice how the breath keeps going even after the vowel sound finishes. And then a final exercise you can try doing is, again, like the train exercise. Like imagine you're at the train station and you see a train in the distance and it gets closer, 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 and then it passes away. You can do like, or like, it's also a great way to practice firmness and softness as well. In addition to that, if you look for more breath exercises to engage diaphragm, if you go to youtube.com/fluentamerican, down at the bottom, I have a playlist of videos that are entirely dedicated to breath. So that might be something else that is helpful. Just a note there. Besides the breath work.
So according to Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis, we only acquire language when we understand something that we used to not understand.
Okay, so another thing to kind of consider here too, elements of contrast. Right now, we're kind of saying all of these sentences. I mean, all these sentences, all these soccer said are about doing. They're all doing the same thing. So like everything's kind of doing that.
So according to Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis, we only acquire language when we understand something that we used to.
So the thing is, I think, going to have the greatest impact here, we got to mix things up. The first thing you can experiment with a little bit more is tapping into pitches, even pitches that are higher, but also pitches that are lower.
So according to Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis.
So I'll do an experiment with like high, mid, low. So according to Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis, do you see to now give you like three ranges? So according to Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis, so I just gave you three different levels there, and you're kind of just giving me one. Okay, so that's the first way. Another way you can add some contrast here is mixing up the speed.
So according to Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis, we only acquire language.
So that part there, according to Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis, you only acquire a language. That's all about the same speed, right? Versus like according to Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis, notice that we start slow. So according to Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis, do you see that it kind of starts slower, speeds up a little bit, then speeds up more? You could do the opposite. So according to Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis, things like that. So that's the opposite, like faster, slower, slowest. In addition to that, paying attention to elements of contrast like firmness, softness. So according to Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis, see how we started firm, then we got softer, softer, softer. So that's another thing you could try doing. You can also incorporate things like pausing, just like so. According to Stephen Krashen's input hypothesis, okay, so we had some pauses there to break things up. There's lots of other elements of contrast. You could play around with volume. You could play around with where you put the stresses in your thought groups. You could vary your thought group length, so make some thought groups longer, others shorter. All of these combine to give a more dynamic experience as we talk. So that's something I would be considering for that file. Because right now everything's kind of following the same pattern. And as I often say, when you find a pattern, break the pattern. Find the pattern, break the pattern. All right, with that, I want to just, again, thank all the people who have sent us files for today, whether I was able to select you for today or not. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. If you would like the chance to be selected for a future stream, please continue to send files in the group. And if you're not in the Telegram group, again, that's free for sending files for these streams. It's called the Schwa Mill pronunciation group. You can do so if you take a look at that top link in the video description. Speaking of people that are in that group, what's up to Ivan Isabella? Do shadowing exercises by listening to our favorite speakers or different Native American English speakers? Yes. Do both. I'd recommend do both. Maybe have that person that you kind of fall back to over and over again, but then also that person, but then mixing it up. So maybe like if you're shadowing every day, maybe 5 days a week, you focus on one person. That's kind of like your central model. And then 2 days a week, you vary it, you mix it up, add different people. Because listening to different people is going to give you different things because everyone has their own kind of unique aspects of their speech. With that, I hope to see your files for Monday, for those of you who are in the group or joining us. Otherwise, I hope to see you if you're just watching. Hope to see you next week. We'll be back again Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, right around 7:30 a.m. New York. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. There's a lot of pronunciation resources. I'm very much aware of that. So the fact you spent some time here on the channel with me is appreciated. Have a good weekend, guys. Have a good day. Have a good night. Have a good afternoon. Take care.